for this summer, my focus was trying things out that I had maybe seen previously, but never, taken the initiative to try out. And some things that I wanted to do, or that Wynn had suggested doing last summer, that we ended up getting to this summer. Ooh, is that too loud? The first thing that I focused on were a lot of closed form jars. The video isn't the steadiest thing in the world, but it's the making of the pots next to it. So, it's pretty much very similar to thin necks and tall thin necks, but finishing it and closing it. And as I was kind of taking away the excess slip, this ledge kind of appeared. So I decided to make it a bit more prominent. And the handle didn't look quite finished until that point was added, in my opinion. So once these were ready to trim, I used a chuck to trim them, and then a thin wire to create that key that separates the lid from the pot itself, which keeps it on the pot from going back and forth, but side to side, there's really nothing that would prevent it. So two coils placed opposite of each other to just keep it tight and secure. And so I did a few of these. I really enjoyed making them. And all were done with the thin wire making that key and the coils placed on the side. This one's pretty similar to the first one, with the pronounced ledges and the pointed handle. You can kind of see the coil a little better in the opened photo, I think. And that one, I pretty much liked using about 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 pounds to make them. It was usually towards the end of my clay bags that I was like, well, it's not really that much to make a sizable bowl, not a big vase, but it would do the job for these jars. And I had seen a lot of these little incense burners and chimeneas. So, once the incense or the Palo Alto wood chips were put in, the smoke comes out like a chimney. So these were thrown like little, they're probably about 4 inches tall, I think. And the one in the middle and the one to the right of it were my first two. And then I really liked how they came out, so I continued with that. I also used a chuck to trim these. The one on the left is flat, but the rest of them, I took 3 little balls of clay and then scored and added them almost like these little peg feet. But they were really stable, and then those openings were made and smoothed out. But I made a lot of them. I really enjoyed them. And glazing, all of them were finished on the inside with a white glaze, and then the outside was just, I think, whatever glaze was next to me, pretty much, because I like leaving a good portion of it bare, because I really like the bare clay next to the usually shiny satiny glaze. You can see the feet a little better in this. But I really enjoyed them, and as I continued making them, I realized I prefer them pretty stout, kind of bulbier, and that just makes, I think, for more room to cut that gallery in. The next thing kind of happening at the same time as the incense burners was taking 2 pieces and combining them to make one piece. I just included this a little bit because it took us about 3 minutes just to separate the bat from the top of it. But one half of it has this pointed rim, and the other one has this valley almost, and once flipped, they join really nicely. And once they're put together, I would apply pressure to make that join a little smoother, and then start throwing it. And you can see in the pictures next to it, it's not the most even, but this was my first attempt at it, and it was really, really neat to try something that was very scary to me, in my opinion. But I kept it pretty traditional with the shape, at least the high shoulders and narrow foot. But it definitely isn't the most even thing. In terms of glazing, I once it came out, I realized what I had done. I added a chino on top of another glaze, but that's what caused this kind of really interesting textured band towards the bottom of the pot. I think it kind of looks like a landscape almost, but that really rocky texture added something that otherwise it would have been, I think, a nice pot, but it really just finished it off in a way that I hadn't originally intended. But I'm super excited with how it came out. And there's another video of pretty much the same thing, different shape. And this one, I think, kind of see the join of it a little better. And my intention with this pot was taller, but I wanted it, you can see that it didn't happen, for the finish to be more of like a flared out trumpet horn towards the rim. And as I continued pulling it, that's not really what the clay wanted to do, so I just kind of allowed it to take shape even more. But I really tried focusing on pulling up as much clay as I could, because I have an issue with leaving quite a lot of clay at the bottom. So I wanted to not, I guess, waste as much clay or trim off a whole lot. So that's sort of the shape that I was intending, with that flared, not super straight, but flared out rim. And I think that this is where that doesn't really continue happening. And once it had started stiffening up a little bit more, I wanted to kind of add more emphasis to the curved bell of it, I think. So once it had stiffened up a little bit, I just kind of rounded it out a little bit more with my thumb. And the glaze, the clay is Russian River, so it has like that brownish red finish to it once it's completely fired. And I thought that complemented the green glaze pretty nicely. And I had never had the opportunity to make glazes before, so these were chinos, and I hope I don't get this wrong, Wynn, but I think the reason for doing these test tiles is because the source of spodumene had run out. So this spodumene, it was testing the new spodumene source with varying levels of iron. So we did 0.5, 1%, and 2% iron in all of these. So at the bottom right, that is them with the water completely sifted and mixed. And these are the test tiles, all on porcelain, but the test tiles had been dipped once, fully, half, twice, and then a corner of it 3 times. And the slabs themselves were all brushed on, just varying levels of brushed once, twice, and 3 times. That was Bill Law's chino, and this was Malcolm's chino, and basically the same process, 0.5%, 1%, 2%, and mixed and sifted through. And these are them all on the test tiles, and this was the result. The Malcolm's chino, The one on the farthest left should be opposite, but they're pretty much all in order with them. And these are all of Bill Law's with their percentages, and Malcolm's. And I don't think any of the results were exactly what maybe Wynn had in mind. Not enough to make a complete, a bigger batch of them. So I liked Bill Law's enough that I ended up putting it on this porcelain pot. I really liked the way the iron came out in it, and I just finished it with a shiny white glaze with these flowers over it. And I used it to get more on 2 other pots with a pretty different result, which was more user error. I hadn't brushed on enough layers of it. It wasn't a thick enough application of them with the same shiny white over it, but it was really exciting being able to do these testing glazes. And the last thing we had looked at was ginger jars and their lids. It was the first time I had made a pot and then a lid to match it, to fit on top. So the trimming was pretty tedious, just making sure that it fits securely, not too loose and not too tight. And these were the finished pieces. And then these were just miscellaneous, kind of like what I was, the results of pieces that I was happiest with, and that I had tried different things with. This was just trimming in this new kind of texture, these ledges. And this piece was the tallest to come out. It was about 9.5 inches, I think. And as I was throwing it, I thought I had gotten everything from it, and Wynn was like, and I just kept tried stretching it to the most that it would go. And then oil dispensers, I got these little spouts from Amazon and did the shrink measured the shrink rate, and they came out and they fit really great. And the bowl next to it, it's a pretty shallow bowl, but it was the widest bowl that I had thrown, I'm pretty sure ever. And this was a picture that came out, and this was a mug. I just messed around with a few different glazes. There's 2 glazes on the inside and I think 3 on the outside. And I really loved the matte yellow mixing with this, it's ice celadon, I think. And it just brought out these yellow crystals that when they're hit just right in the sun, it's really beautiful, and I was really happy with that. And I don't know if the glaze would look familiar to people. I threw this pot very early on in the residency and just kind of left it on a shelf for the entirety, because I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it. If I wanted to, I just wasn't sure. So very last minute, it went into a bisque, and I had left it there right before a glaze kiln was about to go in. And Wynn very nicely asked if I would like him to glaze it for me, and I wasn't going to pass that opportunity up. So I said yes, and I think it came out really beautifully, and I really appreciate him doing that for me. And I want to thank the Ventura County Potters Guild for letting me do this again. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank Wynn too for all of your time and your patience and really taking the time with me. And thank you.
Go ahead, Wynn.
No, I was just say thank you. I don't get to do what I love to do unless you do what you love to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can see how much you've grown since last summer. So it's really cool that seeing your progression over this recent residency program.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate that.
yeah, thank you, Izzy, for presenting.